Hey guys, tonight we're going to dive into a topic that isn't exactly featured in the epic sagas or the flashy TV shows about Vikings. Forget the long ships slicing through icy waves, the glorious battles, or the feasting halls filled with mead and bravado. Tonight we're peeling back the layers to reveal a truth that's a little more gritty. We're going to talk about something far less glamorous, far more backbreaking, and arguably far more miserable than anything you've likely imagined. Why being a Viking blacksmith was a miserable job. Imagine, if you will, the biting chill of a Scandinavian morning long before the sun even considers gracing the horizon. You're not waking up in a warm bed wrapped in furs dreaming of raiding distant lands. Oh no, you're probably stirring on a straw mat, the cold seeping into your bones. And the first thought in your head isn't about glory or riches, but about the relentless, soul-crushing labor that awaits you. You see, while the sagas sing of warriors and kings, the very foundation of their world, their tools, their weapons, their very survival, rested squarely on the shoulders of individuals like you. The blacksmith, the unsung, uncelebrated, and often utterly miserable individual who toiled in a smoky, deafening, and brutally hot world while everyone else was out claiming their fame. So before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. And why not share where you're tuning in from and what time it is for you? It's always fascinating to see how far these sleepy stories travel. Now, dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. You awaken not to the gentle kiss of dawn, but to the dull ache of yesterday's labor, already settling deep in your muscles. The first light barely streaks across the eastern sky, painting the frost-covered landscape in muted blues and grays, but your internal clock, reset by years of punishing routine, has already roused you. Your small, cramped hut, little more than a single room, filled with the barest necessities, offers scant comfort against the pre-dawn chill. A thin layer of ice might even cling to the inside of the door, a cruel reminder of the biting cold that permeates every aspect of your life. You shiver, pulling a coarse woolen blanket tighter around yourself for a fleeting moment of warmth, knowing it's a luxury you can't afford to linger in. The scent of wood smoke, damp earth, and the faint, lingering metallic tang of iron is the aroma of your world. It clings to your clothes, permeates your skin, and likely even infuses the very air you breathe in your sleep. It's not a romantic smell, not the invigorating scent of pine forest or the salt spray of the ocean. It's the smell of work, of relentless effort, of a life perpetually teetering on the edge of exhaustion. As you swing your legs over the side of your simple sleeping platform, your feet hit the cold earth floor, sending a jolt up your spine. Every joint, every muscle seems to protest, the awakening groaning under the accumulated strain of countless hours spent wielding heavy hammers and wrestling with molten metal. You rise, your body moving with the slow, deliberate motions of someone who knows the day will demand every ounce of their strength. There's no elaborate morning ritual, no time for reflection. Breakfast, if you're lucky, is a meager handful of dried oats or a piece of stale bread washed down with whatever cold water's available. It's sustenance, not enjoyment fuel for the relentless grind ahead. You pull on your rough, probably sweat-stained and grimy tunic layered with a leather apron that's more scars and scorch marks than pristine hide. This isn't fashion. It's armor against the hazards of your profession. The short walk from your hut to the forge is more than just a few steps. It's a transition into another world, a world dominated by fire and iron. The forge's sturdy, smoke-stained structure stands apart from the other dwellings, a testament to its hazardous nature. Even from a distance, you can sense its presence, a palpable weight in the cold morning air. As you push open the heavy wooden door, a wave of stale, smoky air hits you, a scent that will soon be intensified by the roaring furnace. The interior is dim, lit only by what little light seeps through cracks in the walls and a few strategically placed openings. Shadows dance in the corners, making the familiar tools hanging on the walls seem like skeletal specters. Your first task, and arguably one of the most vital, is to coax the forge back to life. You gather kindling, dry twigs, bits of bark, anything that will catch quickly. You meticulously arrange the larger pieces of wood, then the charcoal, stacking it in a way that encourages airflow, knowing that a good fire is the heart of your operation. With a piece of flint and steel or perhaps a carefully nurtured ember from last night's dying fire, you ignite the tinder. A thin wisp of smoke rises, then a flicker of orange slowly growing into a hungry flame. You begin to work the bellows, a steady rhythmic pumping motion that feeds air to the nascent fire, coaxing it into a roaring inferno. The bellows are your lungs for the forge, and working them is a surprisingly strenuous activity. It requires a consistent, powerful motion pushing and pulling, feeling the resistance of the air as you force it into the heart of the fire. Sweat begins to bead on your brow even in the cool morning air as you establish this crucial rhythm. The crackle of the burning wood, the whoosh of the bellows, and the rising heat are the symphony that heralds the start of your day. This isn't just a fire, it's the lifeblood of your trade. Without it, you are nothing. Without its intense heat, iron remains an unyielding, stubborn rock in the earth, useless for shaping into the tools and weapons your community so desperately needs. As the fire gains strength, you begin to select your raw materials. Unrefined iron dug from boggy ground or traded from distant lands sits in dusty piles. It's not the gleaming, perfectly shaped ingots you might imagine from a modern factory. This is rough stuff, often mixed with impurities, requiring an immense amount of work just to make it usable. You handle the cold, heavy pieces, their weight familiar in your calloused hands. You might pick up a chunk of slag left over from a previous smelt and consider if there's any usable iron left within its rocky embrace. Resources are scarce and nothing goes to waste in this unforgiving world. The first piece of iron goes into the heart of the roaring fire. You watch it not with impatience but with a trained eye observing the subtle changes in its color as it heats. From dull gray, it slowly progresses through a spectrum of reds, oranges, and finally a brilliant, almost blinding yellow-white. This is the moment, the precise temperature where the iron becomes malleable, where it can be persuaded, forced, and hammered into shape. It's a delicate balance, too cold, and it resists cracks or shatters. Too hot, and it becomes brittle, flaky, and equally useless. This intimate understanding of metal and fire is not learned from books. It's etched into your very being through countless hours of trial and error, through burnt skin and frustrated curses. The moment of truth arrives. With long, heavy tongs, you reach into the fiery maw of the forge, pulling out the glowing piece of iron. It radiates an incredible heat, making the air around it shimmer. The light it emits casts flickering shadows across the forge, briefly illuminating the grimy walls and your sweat-streaked face. You move swiftly, bringing the incandescent metal to the anvil, a massive, unyielding block of iron that stands as the silent partner in your daily torment. The first strike of the hammer rings out a deafening clang that reverberates through the small space, echoing in your ears. This isn't just hammering, it's a brutal ballet, a rhythmic dance of force and precision. You bring the hammer down again and again, each blow sending sparks, showering into the air, a dazzling, dangerous constellation against the dim backdrop of the forge. The impact jars your entire body, sending vibrations up your arms, into your shoulders, and down your spine. Your muscles scream in protest, but you ignore them, focusing solely on the task at hand. You turn the iron, twist it, fold it, striking it from different angles, coaxing it into the desired form. The sound of the hammer on the anvil is the constant soundtrack of your life, a relentless percussive beat that drowns out all other thoughts. Consider for a moment the sheer physical toll this takes. You're not working an 8-hour shift. Your workday begins before dawn and stretches long into the twilight, often ending only when the light fades completely or when sheer exhaustion forces you to stop. There are no breaks, no lunch hours, no weekends off. Every day is a repetition of this brutal cycle. Your hands, perpetually calloused and scarred, are likely gnarled and stiff from years of gripping tools. Your back is a permanent ache, your shoulders knotted with tension. You're constantly breathing in smoke and fine metal dust, a cocktail of irritants that certainly doesn't do your lungs any favors. Historians still debate the average lifespan of a Viking-era blacksmith, but it's safe to say it wasn't one of leisurely retirement. It was a life of relentless physical demand that wore down the body far faster than most. And it's not just the physical strain, there's the constant danger. Molten metal can splatter, sending agonizing burns onto exposed skin. A misjudged hammer blow can send a shard of hot iron flying, potentially blinding you or causing other serious injury. The fumes from the charcoal and the heating metal are noxious, and in an enclosed, poorly ventilated space, they can lead to dizziness, headaches, and worse. One common historical fact about Viking blacksmiths often overlooked is the high incidence of eye injuries due to flying sparks and fragments. There were no safety goggles, no protective gloves beyond what you could improvise. Your wits and your reflexes were your only protection, and even then, accidents were an ever-present threat. You might, in a momentary lapse of concentration, bring the hammer down on your own thumb, an excruciating pain that would send you reeling, but still, you'd likely have to push through it. There was no workers' compensation, no time off for injury. The work is precise yet brutally demanding. You might be forging a simple nail, a tool for everyday use, or perhaps something far more complex, a sword blade, a spearhead, or a finely crafted axe. Each item requires a different approach, a different series of hammer blows and different levels of heat. The quality of your work is paramount. A dull axe won't cut wood efficiently. A poorly forged sword might break in battle, leading to the death of its wielder. A shovel that snaps under strain means wasted effort for a farmer. Your reputation and indeed your livelihood depends on the strength and durability of everything you create. There's an odd detail often missed. Some Viking blacksmiths would even temper their tools in human blood or urine, believing it added strength or a mystical property. While scientifically dubious, it speaks to the lengths they would go to ensure their products were of the highest quality. So, as you stand there, sweat stinging your eyes, the roar of the fire, a constant presence, the clang of the hammer, a relentless assault on your ears, you understand the core truth of your existence. You are indispensable, yet often invisible. You are the engine of your community, providing the tools that build houses, plow fields, and wage war, but your efforts are rarely celebrated. The warriors earn the glory, the farmers the harvest, but you, the blacksmith, are left with the scars, the aches, and the endless cycle of fire and iron. You are a crucial cog in the vast brutal machine of Viking society, and your job, while absolutely essential, is without a doubt a truly miserable one. You might even crack a grim, weary smile at the thought that any modern person complaining about their office job probably wouldn't last an hour in your forge. The sun, a slow, indifferent observer, finally begins its climb above the horizon, casting a weak, watery light through the smoke-filled doorway of your forge. It does little to warm the biting air, but it does highlight the swirling motes of ash and metal dust that constantly dance in the air around you. Your breakfast, long since forgotten, has done little to quell the gnawing emptiness in your stomach. But there's no time to dwell on hunger. The rhythm of the forge has taken hold, a relentless beat that dictates your every move. You reach for another piece of raw iron, its surface cold and rough against your grimy fingers. Perhaps it's bog iron, painstakingly extracted from muddy swamps, or maybe a chunk of something traded from a distant land. Its origins a mystery, its quality unknown until the heat reveals its secrets. You feed it into the hungry maw of the forge, watching the flames lick greedily at its surface, already anticipating the moment it glows the incandescent yellow-white you need. The heat, once merely a distant presence, now radiates outwards, pressing in on you, making your skin prickle, and your clothes cling uncomfortably. Your body, despite the constant aches, has a muscle memory all its own. Your hands instinctively grip the tongs, your eyes, despite the stinging smoke, are trained to detect the precise hue of heat. The sound of the bellows, a steady, powerful hiss and roar, is a constant companion, a reminder of the relentless airflow that keeps the forge alive. This isn't a leisurely craft, it's a battle against the very nature of metal, a fight to force it into submission, to bend it to your will. Today, perhaps you're tasked with forging tools for the community. The farmer needs a new plowshare, its predecessor having shattered against a hidden rock in the stubborn earth. The carpenter requires a set of sturdy axes, their edges keen enough to fell the ancient trees that dominate the landscape. The weaver might need a new pair of shears, delicate yet strong enough to process raw wool. Each item, regardless of its seeming simplicity, demands your full attention, your complete mastery of the craft. You pull the glowing iron from the forge, its heat an almost painful embrace against the chill of the air. You slap it onto the anvil, and the first resounding clang echoes through the forge, a sound that has defined your existence for as long as you can remember. Sparks shower a brief, dangerous galaxy of incandescent light that dances in the dimness before winking out of existence. Your hammer, heavy and perfectly balanced, rises and falls with practiced ease each blow, purposeful shaping the stubborn metal with astonishing force. The work is mesmerizing in its brutality. You strike, turn the metal, strike again, the rhythmic blows slowly transforming the shapeless lump into something recognizable. You might be drawing out the iron into a long, slender bar or flattening it into a broad, thin sheet. Each hammer strike isn't just about power, it's about precision. Too hard and you risk fracturing the metal. Too soft and it won't yield. The angle of the hammer, the speed of the blow, the exact spot where it lands, all contribute to the final form. This isn't guesswork. It's a form of brutal physical mathematics perfected through years of trial and error. And the heat. Oh, the unrelenting heat. While the outside world shivers under the northern skies, you are enveloped in a sweltering inferno. Your clothes are soaked with sweat plastering against your skin. The air in the forge is thick, heavy, and superheated, making every breath a conscious effort. You constantly wipe the sweat from your brow with a grimy forearm, but it's a losing battle. The heat sears your skin, dries out your mouth, and slowly, insidiously drains your energy. Imagine trying to perform strenuous manual labor in what feels like the inside of a blast furnace day in and day out with no escape. That, my friends, is your reality. As you work, your mind might wander briefly to the legends told around the communal fires at night. Tales of mighty warriors, of gods and giants, of glorious raids and vast treasures. You might even hear the echoes of a skald's song, praising the bravery of a chieftain and his men. But then, your hammer strikes the anvil again, and the clang brings you crashing back to earth. Your work, while vital to these very legends, is never celebrated in song. No one sings of the blacksmith who forged the sword, only of the warrior who wielded it. There's a curious historical detail. The Vikings believed that iron had magical properties, that it could ward off evil spirits. So while you were just trying to make a living, your work was imbued with a deeper mystical significance by others. The sheer volume of work is overwhelming. There's always another tool to mend another weapon, to forge another piece of iron to process. You're not just making a few items, you're the production line for an entire community. Every axe, every nail, every blade, every piece of armor, it all comes from your forge, from your sweat and muscle. There are no shortcuts, no easy ways out. It's brute force applied intelligently, relentlessly. And what about those complex items, the intricate pieces of weaponry? A sword blade, for instance, isn't just a simple piece of metal. It requires precise shaping, repeated folding and hammering to remove impurities and create layers of steel that lend both strength and flexibility. This process, known as pattern welding, is incredibly laborious and time-consuming. You might spend days, even weeks, on a single sword, each step demanding meticulous attention. You heat the metal, fold it over itself, weld it together with powerful hammer blows, then repeat the process dozens of times. Each fold creates a new layer, a unique pattern that, when polished, would shimmer on the blade. This wasn't just craftsmanship, it was artistry born of sheer endurance. Imagine having to do that without modern machinery, relying solely on your own strength and an unyielding fire. You probably wouldn't last a day. Beyond the physical hardship, there's the constant pressure. If you make a mistake, if a tool breaks prematurely or a weapon fails in battle, the consequences can be severe. A farmer's ruined plowshare means a delayed harvest, potentially impacting the entire community's food supply. A warrior's broken sword could mean his death and a weakened defense for the village. Your work is directly tied to the survival and prosperity of everyone around you, a heavy burden to carry, especially when you are so utterly exhausted. The social standing of a blacksmith in Viking society is also a fascinating yet often debated point. While your skills are undeniably essential, you are not typically viewed as a chieftain or a jarl. You're a craftsman, a worker, someone who provides a vital service but doesn't necessarily command the same respect as a warrior or a landowner. Some historians still debate whether blacksmiths were seen as revered figures due to their magical control over fire and metal, or if they were simply viewed as laborers, albeit highly skilled ones. One thing is certain, however, your hands forever stained with charcoal and scorched by flame clearly mark you as a working man, not a man of leisure. You exist in a liminal space, indispensable yet often on the fringes of the more glorious aspects of Viking life. You're not participating in the feast and the storytelling, you're busy making sure there are knives to carve the meat and hammers to build the halls. And what about payment for your ceaseless labor? It's rarely in gleaming gold or silver. More likely, you're paid in kind a portion of the harvest, a few hides, maybe a piece of fabric. Enough to survive to keep the forge fires burning, but rarely enough to truly prosper or escape the endless cycle of toil. Your wealth isn't measured in possessions, but in the tools you create, the strength of your arms and the enduring heat of your forge. This economic reality means you are perpetually bound to your craft, with little opportunity for social mobility, or a life free from the relentless demands of the anvil. As the day wears on, the fatigue becomes a heavy cloak weighing down your limbs, blurring your vision. The constant ringing in your ears from the hammer blows becomes a dull roar. Your body screams for rest, but the pile of raw iron isn't getting any smaller and the demands of the community continue. You might force yourself to take a brief moment, perhaps, to gulp down some water from a leather skin, the taste metallic and warm from the heat of the forge. You might lean against a cool stone wall for a few seconds, letting out a weary sigh before forcing yourself back to the anvil. This isn't just a job. It's a test of endurance, a daily battle against your own physical limits. A little-known fact is that many blacksmiths, due to the constant stress on their joints, would suffer from severe arthritis and other musculoskeletal issues long before old age, making their lives even more miserable. The sun begins its slow descent, painting the western sky in hues of orange and purple, a beautiful spectacle that you rarely have the luxury of truly appreciating. Your world is still the dim, smoky interior of the forge, illuminated by the dying embers of your fire and the occasional brilliant flash from the hot iron. You work until the last usable light fades, or until the sheer exhaustion of your body finally wins out. The final blows of the hammer echo into the encroaching darkness, a tired farewell to another day of relentless labor. You might bank the fire covering the embers to keep them alive for the morning, a small act of hope for the next brutal dawn. Then you stumble out of the forge, your body aching, your mind numb towards the meager comfort of your hut, knowing that tomorrow the cycle will begin anew. There's no joy, no sense of accomplishment, just the bone-deep weariness that settles into your very soul. You often wonder if any of those glorious warriors sailing off to raid truly understood the misery and effort that went into the very weapons they carried. The air in the forge, even with the fires roaring, always seemed to carry a hint of the damp earth from which your raw materials were coaxed. You, the Viking blacksmith, spent your days wrestling with this earth, or rather the iron that lay within it. Your hands, already a map of scars and calluses, expertly manipulated the glowing metal, the rhythmic clang of hammer on anvil, a constant, almost hypnotic soundtrack to your miserable existence. Today, the focus shifts slightly. While tools for the fields and homes are a constant demand, the needs of the warriors are paramount. They are, after all, the ones who bring back wealth, or at least attempt to. You're working on a spearhead, perhaps. Not just any spearhead, but one destined for a particularly demanding warrior, someone whose life will literally depend on your craftsmanship. You selected the iron with care, judging its quality by its heft and the subtle glint of its surface. Now it's a brilliant, almost blinding yellow-white in the heart of the forge. You plunge your tongs into the flames, gripping the incandescent metal, pulling it out into the relatively cooler air of the workshop. The heat that radiates from it is intense, shimmering in the air, a living thing. With a practiced swing, you bring it to the anvil. The first blow of your hammer is a thunderclap echoing off the stone walls, sending a spray of orange sparks dancing like tiny fiery insects. You strike again and again, your movements fluid despite the immense effort. Each blow is aimed with precision, flattening the metal, drawing it out, refining its shape. You're not just hitting metal, you're coaxing it, forcing it to reveal its inherent strength, removing the impurities that lie hidden within. This constant striking, folding, and welding is a brutal ballet, a dance of power and finesse. Imagine the sheer physical exertion involved in this. You're swinging a heavy hammer, perhaps 5 to 10 pounds, hundreds, even thousands of times a day. Your core muscles are constantly engaged. Your shoulders burn, your forearms ache with a deep, persistent throb. Your back perpetually hunched over the anvil or leaning into the bellows protests with every movement. There's no ergonomic design in a Viking forge, it's all about raw power and endurance. And you do this in a superheated environment, breathing in smoke and metallic dust. It's truly astonishing what the human body can endure, isn't it? But at what cost? You're trading longevity and comfort for the ability to survive another day, to create the very objects that allow your community to function. As you work on the spearhead, you might think about the warrior who will wield it. Will it find its mark in battle? Will it pierce the shield of an enemy or the flesh of a beast? Your fate, in a strange, indirect way, is intertwined with theirs. A faulty weld, a hairline crack, a temper that's off. Any of these could mean the difference between life and death for the warrior, and by extension, impact the success of a raid or the defense of your village. The pressure to produce perfection, or at least something that won't fail when it matters most, is immense. This isn't just a job, it's a solemn responsibility. This brings us to a crucial element of your miserable existence, the relentless pursuit of perfection with imperfect tools and materials. Your iron isn't always top tier. It might have high sulfur content making it brittle or too much phosphorus making it weak. You don't have chemical analyses or precise temperature gauges. You rely on your senses, the color of the glowing metal, the sound of the hammer on the anvil, the feel of the metal yielding or resisting under your blows. It's an intuitive science honed through countless mistakes and lessons learned the hard way. A peculiar, almost forgotten fact is that Viking blacksmiths sometimes intentionally added organic materials like bone or horn shavings into their steel during the forging process, believing it improved the carbon content and thus the strength, a rudimentary form of steel alloy production. Whether it truly helped or was simply a ritual, it shows the constant experimentation in their brutal craft. The noise is another constant torment. The clang of the hammer on the anvil is ceaseless, reverberating through your skull, dulling your hearing over time. The hiss and roar of the forge fire, the grinding of whetstones, the occasional shout from a customer, it's a cacophony that never truly fades. Imagine spending every waking hour in a small enclosed space filled with these deafening sounds. It's an assault on your senses, a constant source of stress that adds to the already overwhelming physical demands. You probably wouldn't even notice the quiet when you finally leave the forge for the night. Your ears would still be ringing. And your tools. They are extensions of your weary body, but they are also constantly degrading. Hammers lose their faces, tongs bend out of shape, anvils slowly wear down from the thousands of blows they absorb. You are not only forging tools for others, you are constantly repairing and maintaining your own. This is a perpetual cycle of creation and recreation, an endless task that prevents you from ever truly resting. There's always something else to fix, another piece of equipment that needs your attention, draining yet more of your precious time and energy. Consider the solitary nature of your work. While a ship might be built by many hands or a field plowed by several, the act of blacksmithing is often a solitary pursuit. You are alone with the fire and the iron, battling against the elements and the stubbornness of raw material. There are no colleagues to share the burden, no one to commiserate with during the long hours. This isolation, combined with the extreme physical demands, can take a significant toll on your mental well-being. You become a stoic figure hardened by fire and solitude, but perhaps also deeply lonely in your unique misery. Historians still debate the extent of social interaction among isolated Viking-era craftspeople. While they were part of a community, the nature of their work often kept them apart. Let's not forget the sheer monotony. Day after day, week after week, you repeat the same motions, the same tasks. Heat the iron hammer, it quench it, repeat. While each piece might be slightly different, the core process remains unchanged. This relentless repetition can be soul-crushing, especially when combined with the physical pain and the constant danger. You're not exploring new lands or engaging in thrilling battles. You're locked in a Sisyphean struggle with inert metal, forcing it to become something useful. You probably dreamt of iron even in your sleep. The smell, too, is ever present. The acrid tang of burning charcoal, the sharp metallic scent of hot iron, the faint unpleasant odor of quenching water as it hisses against molten metal. These are the perfumes of your life. They cling to your hair, your clothes, your skin. You carry the forge with you wherever you go, a constant reminder of your profession. You might try to wash it off, but the scent is ingrained a part of who you are. It's not a smell that evokes comfort or pleasant memories. It's the smell of arduous labor of a life spent in the heart of fire. And what about the constant risk of injury? You're surrounded by searing heat, flying sparks, heavy objects, and sharp edges. Burns are a daily occurrence, ranging from minor singes to deep, agonizing wounds. A slip of the hammer, a misplaced piece of metal, a sudden flare-up from the forge, any of these could result in a crippling injury, one that could end your ability to work, and thus your ability to survive. There's no safety net, no disability insurance. If you can't work, you don't eat. It's as simple and as brutal as that. The phrase, strike while the iron is hot, isn't just a metaphor for you. It's a literal imperative, a reminder that hesitation can be dangerous, leading to inefficient work or even injury. So as you wipe another bead of sweat from your brow, feeling the familiar tremor in your overworked hands, you understand deeply that being a Viking blacksmith is far from a romanticized existence. It's a life defined by physical torment, constant danger, social isolation, and unrelenting monotony. You are a crucial cog in the survival of your community, yet your contributions are rarely celebrated in the sagas. Your glory is found not on the battlefield, but in the enduring strength of the tools and weapons. You painstakingly forge piece by miserable piece. And frankly, you'd probably tell anyone who romanticizes your life to try it for a day. They wouldn't last an hour. The low rumble of your stomach, a constant companion, echoes the emptiness of your morning meal. As the forge fires continue their relentless roar consuming precious wood and charcoal, your thoughts for a fleeting moment turn to sustenance. For you, the Viking blacksmith food isn't about pleasure or variety. It's purely about fuel. It's the necessary energy to swing that heavy hammer to pull those stubborn bellows to endure the searing heat of your daily torment. Your diet is, by modern standards, incredibly monotonous and often insufficient. Imagine a life where your primary source of calories comes from coarse grains, perhaps in the form of a thick, unappetizing gruel or hard, dry bread. This isn't the light, fluffy bread you might enjoy today. It's dense, probably made from barley or rye, and tough enough to chip a tooth if you're not careful. This basic carbohydrate provides some energy but little else in the way of vital nutrients. You eat it not because you enjoy it, but because your body screams for the fuel to continue. Meat for most Viking blacksmiths is a rare luxury. While the sagas speak of great feasts with roasted boar and fresh fish, these are often for the chieftains, the warriors returning from successful raids, or the landowners with vast herds. You, the working man, are more likely to get scraps, perhaps some dried fish if you're near the coast, or salted meat that's more bone and gristle than anything else. Fresh meat is probably reserved for special occasions or when a hunt is particularly successful. This scarcity means your body is constantly craving protein, the building blocks, for those muscles you use so relentlessly. No wonder your body aches constantly. It's likely running on a perpetual energy deficit. You probably fantasize about a large cut of roasted meat more often than you'd care to admit. Vegetables, if available, are limited to seasonal root crops like carrots, turnips, or parsnips, and wild greens gathered from the forest. These provide some vitamins, but again, their availability is inconsistent, dictated by the unpredictable nature of the northern climate. During the long, dark winters, fresh produce is a distant memory, and you rely entirely on dried or preserved foods. Your immune system, constantly battling the effects of poor nutrition and physical exhaustion, is likely weaker than it should be, making you susceptible to illness. A common, though rarely discussed, historical challenge for working-class Vikings was chronic nutrient deficiencies, leading to conditions like scurvy during long winters without fresh produce. And then there's the issue of hydration. You sweat profusely in the forge liters upon liters of fluid, lost each day to the oppressive heat. Your primary drink is water often unpurified and potentially contaminated or perhaps weak ale. Ale provides some calories and is safer than questionable water, but it's not exactly a rehydrating beverage, especially not the strong, heady stuff enjoyed at feasts. You are constantly on the verge of dehydration, a state that exacerbates muscle fatigue, headaches, and general malaise. Imagine trying to perform your physically demanding job while perpetually thirsty and with a dull headache pounding behind your eyes. The psychological impact of this meager diet cannot be overstated. Food is more than just sustenance, it's comfort, enjoyment, a moment of respite. For you, it's just another obligation, another bland, repetitive task to endure. There's no anticipation of a delicious meal, no culinary delights to break the monotony of your arduous days. This constant lack of flavorful, satisfying food contributes to the overall misery of your existence, a subtle yet pervasive form of deprivation. It makes those occasional feasts in the longhouse where you might be granted a seat far down the hall seem like truly otherworldly experiences. Beyond the sheer lack, there's the quality. You're not a high-status individual. You don't get the best cuts of meat or the freshest produce. You get what's left over, what's available, what's deemed sufficient for a working man. Your food is likely prepared simply without much seasoning or culinary skill. It's boiled, baked, or dried, designed for preservation and sustenance, not flavor. This means every bite is a reminder of your place in society, a tangible representation of your low status. You're not being starved, but you're certainly not being nourished to thrive. Historians still debate the specific caloric intake of Viking-era laborers, but general consensus suggests it was often barely enough to support their extreme physical exertion. Consider the contrast between your daily meals and those enjoyed by the chieftains and warriors you serve. They feast on fresh meat, rich stews, fine bread, and potent mead, celebrating their victories and their wealth. While you toil away providing the very tools that enabled their conquests, you are largely excluded from the lavish rewards. This stark disparity in diet is a constant, quiet reminder of the social hierarchy, a subtle form of resentment that might fester beneath your stoic exterior. You are the foundation, but they are the towering structure above. You fuel their glory, but subsist on the bare minimum yourself. Even the act of eating is often rushed. There's no leisurely mealtime, no chance to truly relax and savor what little food you have. You grab a few bites, gulp down some water, and then it's back to the searing heat of the forge, back to the rhythmic clang of the hammer. Every moment away from the anvil is a moment, lost a moment when you're not producing, not earning your meager living. This constant pressure means that even the simple act of eating becomes another chore, another hurried necessity in a life overflowing with them. You probably wouldn't even chew your food properly, just swallow it down to get back to work. Your body, battered by the constant physical strain, is also starved for proper nutrition. This isn't just about feeling hungry, it's about your body literally breaking down due to lack of essential nutrients. Your bones might be brittle, your teeth prone to decay, your muscles constantly sore and slow to recover. This undernourishment contributes significantly to your perpetual state of misery, turning every task into an even greater struggle. It's a vicious cycle. You need strength for your work, but your work prevents you from getting the food necessary to build and maintain that strength. You're constantly fighting an uphill battle fueled by barely enough to keep you going. So as you take another bite of that hard bread or swallow another mouthful of bland gruel, remember that for the Viking blacksmith, food wasn't a source of joy. It was a utilitarian necessity, a grim reminder of your place in the world, and a constant testament to the physical toll of your unforgiving profession. It's yet another layer in the rich tapestry of misery that defined your daily existence. You might even crack a tired joke to yourself if you had the energy about how you're always hungry no matter how much you eat. The hunger of the forge perhaps is simply too great to ever truly satiate. As the sun arcs higher, casting long, stark shadows across the smoky floor of your forge, your isolation deepens. You are physically present within the bustling, often chaotic life of a Viking settlement, yet you exist on its periphery. While the longhouses might be filled with the boisterous laughter of warriors, the murmur of women weaving, or the shouts of children playing your world remains largely confined to the rhythmic clang of hammer on anvil, the roar of the fire, and the silent struggle with stubborn iron. This is the curious paradox of your existence. You are indispensable, yet often an outsider. You are the lifeblood of the community. Without your skill, there are no axes to fell trees for new longhouses or ship repairs. Without your strength, there are no plowshares to turn the earth and feed the hungry mouths. Without your relentless work, there are no swords or spearheads to defend against encroaching enemies or to bring home the spoils of a raid. Every single aspect of Viking life, from the mundane to the magnificent, hinges on the products of your forge. Yet despite this undeniable importance, your social standing is often a peculiar blend of necessity and marginalization. Consider the other members of your community. The chieftain with his lineage and martial prowess commands respect and loyalty. The warriors with their bravery and readiness for battle are celebrated in sagas and songs. The farmers with their connection to the land and the life-giving harvest are seen as providers. Even the skalds with their poetic words and ability to immortalize deeds hold a revered place. But you, the blacksmith, exist in a different realm. You are often seen as a worker, a craftsman, someone who performs a vital, albeit dirty and dangerous service. You are the muscle and the skill, but rarely the glory. Historians still debate the precise social hierarchy of various Viking communities, but it's generally agreed that while highly skilled blacksmiths rarely occupied the highest echelons of power or prestige. You might be called upon to attend a communal gathering in the longhouse, but you'd likely sit near the door among the other laborers rather than at the high table with the important figures. While others feast on roasted meats and drink potent mead, celebrating triumphs or planning future raids, you might find yourself observing from a distance. Your hands, despite being the ones that forge the very knives they eat, with remaining unadorned by rings or symbols of status. Your face, permanently etched with the grime of charcoal and sweat, sets you apart from the cleaner, more outwardly respected members of society. There's a subtle yet pervasive sense of being othered, a quiet understanding that your place is to serve, not to lead or to bask in the limelight. This marginalization isn't necessarily hostile. It's simply a reflection of the societal values. Physical prowess and battle land ownership and ancestral lineage often trumped skilled labor in terms of social standing. While your skill was acknowledged and needed, it didn't necessarily translate into high social currency. It's a bit like being the incredibly talented but uncredited roadie for a rock band. Everyone loves the music, but no one really sees you building the stage or tuning the instruments. You are the silent, sweating backbone. And because of the demanding nature of your work, your opportunities for social interaction are limited. While others gather for game storytelling or communal labor like harvesting or fishing, you are often confined to your forge. The fire demands constant attention, the iron waits for no man. Your days are long, dictated by the sun and the needs of your craft. This constant engagement with your work means you miss out on much of the casual social fabric of the community. You hear snippets of gossip, fragments of news, but you are rarely a direct participant in the broader social currents. You are a crucial part of the village, but strangely detached from its everyday pulse. A curious detail from historical accounts is that some blacksmiths, particularly those known for crafting exceptional blades, were sometimes given a slightly higher status, almost like revered artists. But this was more the exception than the rule. Even your knowledge, while profound in its own right, is specific and often misunderstood by others. You understand the properties of different ores, the intricacies of heat treatment, the subtle art of shaping metal. But this specialized knowledge doesn't necessarily translate into power or influence in a society that values martial skill and oral traditions. Your wisdom is of the forge, not of the battlefield or the assembly. You are consulted for your technical expertise, but rarely for your opinions on broader matters. You might offer a grim warning about a poorly maintained axe or advise on the strength of a new sword, but your voice on community decisions is probably rarely sought, if at all. Consider, too, the superstitions surrounding your craft. While your skills are practical, the very act of transforming raw earth into powerful tools and weapons, using the primordial force of fire, was often viewed with a degree of awe, suspicion, or even fear. Some believed blacksmiths possessed a connection to the supernatural, that their work bordered on magic. While this might lend you a certain mystique, it also serves to set you apart, to mark you as different. You might be seen as both a vital asset and a figure touched by forces beyond ordinary understanding. This duality contributes to your isolation. You are respected for your power over metal, but perhaps also slightly feared or kept at arm's length. Your hands forever stained with charcoal and scorched by the heat are another clear marker of your separation. They are working hands, powerful and calloused, but not refined. They are the hands of a laborer, not a chieftain or a jarl. This physical distinction, visible to all, reinforces your social position. You are a man of the forge, bound to its grime and its heat, while others are free to pursue different paths to cultivate different appearances. You are proud of your skill, of course, but the physical signs of your relentless toil are a constant public declaration of your place in the social order. So, as you wipe another layer of sweat from your sooty brow and the clang of your hammer continues its endless rhythm, you understand that your role as a Viking blacksmith is one of profound irony. You are the silent engine of your community, providing the very bedrock upon which their lives are built, their battles fought, and their prosperity achieved. Yet you remain largely uncelebrated, often isolated, and perpetually burdened by the physical and social realities of your miserable, indispensable craft. You are the anonymous hero toiling in the shadows, while others claim the glory, a truth that probably sparks a bitter, weary chuckle in your chest as you hammer away. The rhythmic clang of your hammer on the anvil, a sound that has etched itself into the very fabric of your being, continues its relentless beat. But as the iron heats and cools, as sparks fly and metal yields, you are acutely aware that your craft is more than just brute force and technical skill. In the Viking world where the boundaries between the mundane and the mystical were fluid, your forge was a place where the shadow of superstition loomed large, intertwining with every strike and every fiery transformation. This added another layer to the misery of your existence, burdening you not just with physical toil, but with the weight of unseen forces. You understand the science of your trade, the way heat softens metal, the way rapid cooling hardens it, the way impurities weaken it. You know that a well-forged blade will hold an edge and a poorly made one will shatter. Yet the people around you, and sometimes even a part of yourself, believe there's more to it. They see the raw earth transforming into gleaming steel, the fire that roars and spits the deafening sound of creation. For them, this isn't just craftsmanship. It's akin to magic, a powerful act that can invoke blessings or curses. Consider the very act of quenching. You plunge a glowing cherry-red piece of metal into a barrel of water, and it hisses violently, sending up a cloud of steam. This dramatic spectacle, the sudden confrontation of fire and water, was often seen as a powerful ritual. Some believe the water absorbed the spirit of the iron, or that the rapid cooling imbued the metal with specific properties beyond simple hardness. A curious and often grisly historical fact is that some Viking blacksmiths were rumored to quench particularly important blades in the blood of sacrifices, whether animal or chillingly human, believing it would give the weapon unearthly strength or a malevolent spirit. While likely rare and highly ritualistic, it speaks volumes about the superstitions surrounding your work. Your forge itself, a dark, smoky cavern, lit by the inferno within, is seen by some as a liminal space, a bridge between the human world and the realm of spirits. It's a place where raw, chaotic elements, earth, fire, water, and air, are brought together and forced into submission. This perceived connection to powerful primal forces means that you, the blacksmith, might be viewed with a mix of respect, awe, and even a degree of apprehension. People might come to you not just for a new axe, but for a horseshoe to ward off evil, or a piece of iron to protect against malevolent spirits. This adds an immense unspoken pressure. You are not just a craftsman, but a conduit for powerful, potentially dangerous forces. The tools you create are not just practical objects. They are often imbued with symbolic meaning. A sword is not merely a weapon, it is an extension of the warrior's spirit, a family heirloom, or a tool that can bring glory or dishonor. A hammer isn't just a tool, it's a symbol of Mjolnir Thor's mighty weapon capable of striking down giants. This infusion of spiritual significance into your creations means that every mistake you make, every flaw in the metal, could be interpreted not as a technical error, but as an ill omen, a sign of bad luck, or even a deliberate curse. Historians still debate the extent to which Viking blacksmiths themselves believed in these superstitions, versus simply capitalizing on their customers' beliefs. Regardless, the constant presence of these beliefs would undoubtedly shape your daily reality. Imagine the subtle burden this places on you. If a blade you forged breaks in battle, it might not be attributed to poor forging or extreme force, but to a bad omen, or even a malevolent spirit that you somehow failed to appease. This creates an enormous invisible pressure and anxiety that goes beyond the physical demands of your job. You're not just accountable for the strength of the steel, you're held responsible for its spiritual efficacy, for its ability to protect against unseen dangers. This intangible weight adds to your misery, making your job not just physically exhausting, but psychologically taxing as well. You probably had to perform small rituals yourself, just to appease the customer or to calm your own anxieties about the unknown. There are also the various rites and rituals that might be performed in or around your forge. Perhaps you are asked to forge a special luck nail for a new longhouse, or to create an iron charm for a newborn child. These requests, while seemingly simple, require you to engage with the spiritual beliefs of your community to lend your craft to their superstitions. You might be asked to work on specific days under certain moon phases or to incorporate particular symbols into your work. This demands not just your skill, but your participation in a worldview that you may or may not fully subscribe to, but which you cannot afford to ignore. The sound of your hammer, too, is often more than just noise. In some beliefs, the rhythmic clang was thought to drive away evil spirits or to call upon the favor of the gods. The sparks that fly from the anvil, those tiny bursts of light and heat, were seen as miniature stars or as embodiments of the life force of the metal. These everyday occurrences in your forge, which you experience as mundane realities, are imbued with profound spiritual meaning by those around you. This constant, unasked-for layer of mystical interpretation adds to the pressure of your work, making every action a potential ritual, every mistake a possible sacrilege. You're not just hitting iron, you're engaging with the very fabric of the cosmos, at least in the eyes of others. It's enough to make you tired just thinking about it. So as you wipe sweat from your brow, listening to the familiar clang of steel, remember that the Viking blacksmith's life wasn't just about sweat and muscle. It was also about navigating a world where every flicker of flame and every strike of the hammer carried a hidden meaning, a whisper of the supernatural. This constant interplay between the practical and the mystical added a unique and pervasive layer to the misery of your existence, making your physically demanding job also a psychologically taxing one forever, under the watchful, superstitious eyes of your community. The rhythmic pulse of your forge, the constant thump, hiss, clang of bellows and hammer, continues its relentless drumbeat. But amidst the brutal repetition and the omnipresent danger, a subtle shift occurs in your work, driven by necessity and the relentless ingenuity of human spirit. You, the Viking blacksmith, are not merely a brute force laborer. You are, by grim necessity, an innovator under pressure. This unspoken role adds a layer of mental strain to your physical misery, forcing you to constantly adapt and overcome challenges with scarce resources. Consider the raw materials you work with. They are rarely pristine. Bog iron, often the most readily available source, is notoriously impure, riddled with slag and other contaminants. Scrap metal salvaged from broken tools or plundered from distant lands comes in unpredictable qualities. You don't have the luxury of ordering standardized high-quality steel. Instead, you must assess each piece by eye by touch and by the way it responds to the heat and hammer. This constant evaluation and adaptation require a profound understanding of metallurgy, a knowledge gained through countless hours of trial and error, not from a textbook. You are in effect a primitive metallurgist, constantly experimenting. This pressure to innovate stems from the very survival of your community. A broken tool means lost time in the fields. A dull axe makes building a ship a longer, more arduous task. A weak sword can cost a warrior his life. You are constantly striving to make stronger, more durable, and more efficient tools and weapons, not because you're driven by abstract scientific curiosity, but because failure has immediate and tangible consequences. It's a ruthless feedback loop. Your creations are tested in the harshest possible environments. On the battlefield against the stubborn earth and the relentless sea, and any weakness is quickly exposed. Imagine trying to improve your craft with no written guides, no formal education, and no easy way to share detailed knowledge beyond word of mouth or direct apprenticeship. Every innovation you make, every technique you refine, is the result of painstaking, often frustrating experimentation within the confines of your smoky forge. Perhaps you discover that a certain type of charcoal burns hotter, or that adding particular materials during the smelting process, like those rumored bone or horn shavings, alters the properties of the steel in a beneficial way. This knowledge is hard-won, often at the cost of ruined materials and wasted effort, adding another layer of anxiety to your already stressful existence. Historians still debate the true extent of scientific understanding among Viking blacksmiths. While their methods were empirical, they showed a remarkable intuitive grasp of material science. You are also forced to be incredibly resourceful. Resources are precious. Every scrap of iron, every piece of wood, every drop of water is valued. You constantly assess what can be salvaged, what can be repaired, what can be repurposed. A broken sword might be reforged into a smaller knife or a set of nails. The slag from a previous smelt might be reprocessed to extract any remaining usable iron. This constant need to conserve and reuse adds another mental burden, forcing you to think creatively about every discarded item to see potential where others see only waste. You probably feel like you're constantly playing a grim game of resource management. Consider the development of tools themselves. The axe so central to Viking life evolved over centuries. You, or blacksmiths like you, were part of that evolution, subtly refining blade shapes, improving the balance, finding new ways to attach the head to the handle more securely. Each incremental improvement, each small step forward was born from countless hours of experimentation and the relentless feedback from users in the field. It's a slow, grueling process of trial and error, a testament to uncredited human ingenuity under extreme pressure. A lesser-known fact is that some Viking axe heads were intentionally designed with a slight curve to improve their cutting efficiency, a subtle yet significant innovation. The demand for specialized items also forces innovation. While a basic axe might be straightforward, what about a finely balanced sword that needs to be both sharp and flexible, or intricate iron fittings for a longship designed to withstand the brutal forces of the open ocean? These complex tasks push your skills to their absolute limit, forcing you to develop new techniques, new approaches, often without any external guidance. You are constantly teaching yourself, refining your methods through sheer necessity. This intellectual challenge, while stimulating, is also incredibly draining, especially after a full day of back-breaking labor. This constant need for problem-solving under duress adds a pervasive layer of mental fatigue to your already physically exhausted state. You don't just hit metal, you constantly analyze, strategize, and adapt. Every piece of iron presents its own unique challenges, and you must find the most efficient and effective way to overcome them, knowing that your livelihood and perhaps the survival of others depends on your success. There's no room for complacency, no time to rest on your laurels. The next challenge is always waiting, another piece of stubborn iron demanding your creative force. So as the clang of your hammer reverberates through the forge, know that you are more than just a laborer. You are a silent innovator, a resourceful problem solver, constantly pushing the boundaries of your craft out of sheer necessity. This intellectual demand, combined with the relentless physical toil and the constant dangers, adds yet another profound layer to the enduring misery of being a Viking blacksmith. It's a testament to the human spirit's ability to adapt, but a harsh reminder of the price paid for that innovation in a world that offered little comfort or reward for such genius. You sometimes wonder if those glorious warriors ever pondered the intricate mind and innovative spirit that went into the sharp edge of their blades. The heat of your forge is a constant companion, a living entity that envelops you in its fiery embrace. Yet as the sun begins its slow descent, painting the western sky with hues you rarely have the luxury of truly appreciating, your thoughts turn beyond the confines of your smoky workshop. You, the Viking blacksmith, are acutely aware that the value of your creations isn't solely in their strength or sharpness, but in their ability to reach markets far beyond your village. This involves the perilous trade routes adding a layer of anxiety to your already miserable existence, as the fate of your hard work rests in the hands of others, subject to the whims of nature and the dangers of a brutal world. You might be forging a batch of iron tools, axes, hammers, or plowshares, destined for a distant settlement where iron ore is scarce. Or perhaps you're creating a set of finely crafted spearheads and sword blanks, knowing they will eventually be traded for silver furs or exotic goods from foreign lands. Once these items leave your forge, your control over them vanishes. They become commodities entrusted to merchants or warriors who will transport them across treacherous seas or through dense, dangerous forests. This uncertainty is a silent, gnawing worry. Imagine the immense effort you put into each piece. Every hammer blow, every moment spent in the suffocating heat, every ache in your muscles. It all culminates in these finished goods. And now they embark on a journey fraught with peril. The longships, while magnificent vessels, are at the mercy of violent storms, unpredictable currents, and the ever-present threat of ice. Overland routes are no less dangerous, plagued by bandits, rival tribes, and the unforgiving wilderness itself. Your livelihood, your ability to feed yourself and your family, is directly tied to the successful passage of these goods. A lost shipment isn't just a financial setback. It's a profound personal loss, a waste of your precious time and grueling effort. The market itself is also unpredictable. Even if your goods arrive safely, there's no guarantee they will fetch a good price. Demand can fluctuate, and rival blacksmiths in other regions might offer their wares at a lower cost or a superior quality. You have no way of knowing what awaits your products at the end of their long journey. This constant uncertainty adds a layer of economic anxiety to your already burdened shoulders. You are disconnected from the final transaction, relying entirely on the honesty and shrewdness of the traders. Historians still debate the precise mechanisms of Viking trade, but it's clear that it was a high-risk, high-reward endeavor with immense pressures on the producers. Consider the time lag. You might spend weeks, even months, forging a significant order, only for it to take additional weeks or months for the goods to reach their destination and for payment to return. During this period, you are effectively working on credit, your meager resources stretch thin, hoping for a successful outcome. This prolonged uncertainty means you are always planning ahead, always anticipating, always worrying about the next incoming payment or the fate of your last shipment. There's no steady paycheck, no reliable income stream. Every day is a gamble. Every piece you forge is a bet against the harsh realities of the trade routes. A little-known fact is that some blacksmiths would even mark their goods with unique symbols or master's marks. Not just for pride, but to ensure that if the goods were seized or recovered, they could be identified and returned, highlighting the high value placed on each item. And then there's the quality of your competitors. As trade routes expanded, you might find yourself competing with blacksmiths from distant lands, perhaps with different techniques, different materials, or even different specialized skills. Your reputation built on the strength and reliability of your work is crucial. A single complaint from a distant market, a report of a faulty blade or a brittle tool, could damage your standing and impact future orders. This constant pressure to maintain a high standard despite your limited resources and grueling conditions is yet another source of stress. You are not just fighting the iron, you are fighting against an entire network of supply and demand, a vast economic web that stretches across the known world. So as you wipe the sweat from your sooty brow, the clang of your hammer, a weary echo in the dimming light, you understand that your misery extends far beyond the confines of your forge. It reaches across the perilous trade routes, carried on the waves and through the wilderness, a constant source of anxiety as the fate of your invaluable creations hangs in the balance. Your arduous labor, the very core of your miserable existence, is ultimately subject to forces far beyond your control. A cruel twist of fate in a world that offers little comfort or security. You sometimes wonder if the sea wolves and merchants who carry your goods truly grasp the backbreaking effort that went into every single item they transport. The sun dips below the horizon and the biting chill of the northern evening begins to seep into the forge, mingling with the lingering heat of the dying coals. Your body aches with a profound weariness that penetrates to your very bones, a constant reminder of the day's brutal labor. Yet, as you bank the embers and prepare to leave your smoky sanctuary, you understand that your relentless toil, your miserable existence leaves an undeniable mark. It is a legacy forged in fire, a silent, enduring contribution to the sagas of others, a truth that offers little personal glory but a profound, albeit cold, satisfaction. You are not the chieftain leading warriors to glory, nor the skald singing tales of heroic deeds. Your name will likely never be whispered in the longhouse or carved on a runestone. Your accomplishments are not measured in plunder or in land conquered, but in the enduring strength of the tools you forge, the sharpness of the blades you temper, and the reliability of the fittings you craft. Your legacy is etched not in grand narratives, but in the very fabric of Viking life, a testament to uncelebrated, relentless effort. Consider the axe that fells the mighty oak, providing the timber for a new longship, or the beams for a sturdy hull. That axe born of your sweat and skill enables creation, progress, and shelter. The farmers who till the soil relying on your plowshares and scythes are able to feed the community, ensuring survival through harsh winters. The warriors who venture across the seas, their lives depending on the strength of their swords and the integrity of their ship's iron rivets, carry your craftsmanship into battle. Your work is the unseen foundation, the indispensable bedrock upon which the entire structure of Viking society rests. This is your quiet victory, the ability to provide. While others seek fame, you provide the means for them to achieve it. While others claim land, you provide the tools to work it. While others sail distant seas, you provide the iron that holds their ships together. Your hands, scarred and calloused, are the hands that enable all these grander narratives. There's a subtle, almost ironic pride in this. You are the architect of their triumphs, even if you are forever relegated to the background, and your legacy isn't just about tools and weapons, it's also about knowledge. Though largely unwritten, the techniques you've mastered, the subtle improvements you've discovered through countless hours of trial and error will be passed down. Perhaps to an apprentice who endures the same harsh tutelage, or simply observed by others who seek to learn from your undeniable skill. This oral tradition of craftsmanship honed by generations of blacksmiths like you ensures that the vital skills necessary for survival continue. You are a living repository of essential knowledge, a link in an unbroken chain of human ingenuity. Historians still debate the specific methods of knowledge transfer among craftspeople in the Viking Age, but it's clear that direct apprenticeship and observation were paramount, solidifying the master-apprentice bond. The sheer longevity of your creations is another facet of your enduring legacy. Unlike a fleeting battle or a spoken saga that might fade with time, the iron objects you produce can last for centuries. A well-made axe head might be passed down through generations, used by fathers, sons, and grandsons. A sturdy sword could become a family heirloom, witnessing countless events. Your work endures long after your body has crumbled to dust, a tangible echo of your misery and your mastery. Imagine your satisfaction if you ever had time for such thoughts, knowing that a piece you forged might still be in use hundreds of years later. However, this legacy comes with a heavy price. It is built upon a foundation of suffering, of back-breaking labor, constant danger, and unrelenting monotony. You achieve immortality not through glorious deeds, but through the sheer unyielding endurance of your miserable daily life. Your contribution is acknowledged through its utility, not through celebration. You are the silent giant upon whose shoulders the more famous figures stand, a profound truth that likely brings a grimace rather than a smile to your exhausted face. So as you finally extinguish the last visible glow of your forge fire, feeling the profound ache in every muscle, you understand that your life, while deeply miserable, is not without its purpose. It is a purpose forged in fire, hammered into being by your relentless effort, a silent legacy that underpins the very sagas of the Viking Age. Your story isn't one of glory, but one of indispensable enduring toil, a testament to the anonymous essential workers whose misery paved the way for the triumphs of others. And in that quiet, aching truth, there is a certain, very cold form of immortality. The last flicker of light from your forge fades, leaving the interior in a deep, inky blackness, punctuated only by the distant gleam of stars through the smoke hole. Your body, a vessel of relentless ache, yearns for the simple oblivion of sleep. You stumble out of the forge the cold night air, a sharp contrast to the inferno you've inhabited all day, and make your way back to your meager hut. This journey, though short, feels like an epic odyssey, each step a protest from your exhausted muscles. This is the truth of your life. The day ends not with celebration or satisfaction, but with the profound, all-encompassing desire for the weary sleep, a desperate escape from the relentless demands of your miserable existence. You enter your hut, a small, dark space that offers little comfort beyond shelter from the elements. There's no soft bed, no plush furs, no warm bath awaiting you. You shed your grimy, sweat-soaked tunic and leather apron, their scents a constant reminder of the day's toil. Your skin is probably caked with soot and fine metal dust, and you might have a fresh burn or two angry red marks against your weathered skin. You sink onto your sleeping platform, perhaps just a wooden frame, covered with straw and a few rough woolen blankets. The cold seeps into your bones, but the deep exhaustion of your body overrides any discomfort. Sleep, when it finally comes, is not a gentle descent into peaceful dreams. It's often a heavy, dreamless unconsciousness, a form of temporary death from which you desperately need to emerge revitalized, though rarely are. Your body, even in repose, continues to process the day's trauma. Your muscles might twitch, your breathing remains deep and heavy, and the lingering phantom smells of smoke and hot iron might still cling to your nostrils. You are not resting so much as recharging a depleted battery, hoping against hope that you'll have enough energy to face another brutal dawn. Even your dreams, when they do surface, are likely influenced by your waking misery. You might dream of endless fire of stubborn metal that refuses to yield, of the deafening clang of the hammer, echoing in an empty void. There are no dreams of Valhalla, no visions of glorious feasts or beautiful maidens. Your dreams are instead populated by the tools of your trade, the raw materials you wrestle with, the relentless processes that define your every waking moment. It's a continuation of your misery, even in the supposed sanctuary of sleep. Historians still debate the dreamscapes of ancient peoples, but it's reasonable to assume that daily realities, especially harsh ones, deeply influence their subconscious. The sleep you crave is not restorative in the way a modern person might understand it. It is merely a cessation of conscious effort, a temporary respite before the cycle begins anew. You know deep down that when the first hint of pre-dawn light touches the sky, or when the village begins to stir, your internal clock will rouse you once more. The aches will return, the hunger will gnaw, and the relentless call of the forge will beckon you back to its fiery maw. There is no true escape, only brief, intermittent periods of unconsciousness. And as you lie there drifting in and out of awareness, you might ponder the unfairness of it all. The warriors sleep soundly after a successful raid, their bellies full, their minds eased by the spoils of war. The chieftains rest in their grand longhouses, secure in their power and wealth. But you, the one who provides the very means for their success, are left with nothing but exhaustion and the promise of another grueling day. This quiet resentment, this unspoken bitterness, is another heavy weight on your weary soul. You are a crucial cog, but a perpetually suffering one. You might even have moments of desperate fantasy. What if you simply didn't wake up? What if the sleep became permanent, an ultimate release from the endless cycle of fire and iron? But these thoughts are fleeting, quickly extinguished by the ingrained instinct for survival, the deep-seated responsibility to your craft and your community. You must wake, you must work. You must endure, for your very survival depends on it. There's no opting out of being a Viking blacksmith. A common, though often unwritten, understanding in such societies was that every member had a defined role, and shirking it could have dire consequences for the entire community. As you finally succumb to the heavy embrace of sleep, the sounds of the night fade into a dull hum. The distant barking of a dog, the rustling of wind through the thatch roof, the soft murmur of the river, all become muted, swallowed by your profound weariness. Your last conscious thought is probably of the iron waiting cold and stubborn for your hammer to awaken it once more. And so the night deepens, wrapping the small village in its quiet embrace. The longhouses stand like silent sentinels. The ships lie tethered at the shore, and in your humble hut, you, the Viking blacksmith, finally find a few hours of uneasy rest. Your dreams, if they come, are not of glory or adventure, but of the relentless dance of fire and metal, the endless cycle of your miserable, indispensable life. The very earth you lie on the iron, deep within it, waits for your call, waiting for another day to begin its painful, beautiful transformation. So to for junctulen, deep tuk. The rhythmic whisper of the night begins to deepen the gentle hum of the unseen world, lulling you into a softer state. The sharp edges of your day, the clang of the hammer, the searing heat, the biting cold, they all begin to blur, softening into the gentle haze of memory. You are no longer fully in the forge nor entirely in your hut. You are drifting weightless as the sounds around you become more muted, more distant. The air cools, a gentle breeze, perhaps stirring the thatch above your head, carrying with it the faint, sweet scent of damp earth and distant pine, a balm to your senses. The ache in your muscles, so profound just moments ago, begins to recede, fading like the last embers in a hearth. Your breathing deepens, each inhalation a little more relaxed, each exhalation a little longer, softer. The images of glowing iron and showering sparks dissipate, replaced by the peaceful darkness behind your eyelids. You are letting go, releasing the day's burdens, allowing the profound weariness to finally claim you completely. There is no urgency here, no demands, just the slow, steady rhythm of your own body settling into rest. Imagine a single lone star appearing in the blackness above a tiny, distant beacon in the vast expanse. It twinkles softly and differently to the struggles of your day, offering neither judgment nor solace, simply existing. And as you watch it, or perhaps just sense its presence, your consciousness begins to recede, pulling back from the edge of wakefulness, gently falling deeper, deeper into the quiet, restoring embrace of slumber. The world outside fades, the sounds diminish to a whisper, and even the last lingering thoughts of the forge dissolve into nothingness. You are safe now, truly at rest, suspended in the gentle current of sleep.